Hey, y'all, welcome back to the podcast solo episode today. And I felt like I had been wanting to record this episode for a hot minute now. And I hope it comes across well because if you've been here a while, I cannot believe it. We are like well over 3.5 years of doing the podcast, which is insane. I'm so grateful for this. Amazing guests over the years. We've just surpassed, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, we just surpassed 200 episodes. And I just wanted to jump in here today to talk about something that has really been on my heart. And it's been something that I've been talking a ton about with clients. And that is the whole thing of Instagram versus reality. And, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the things, there is moments in time where I'm just like, fuck this industry. It is the worst thing possible because there's a lot of negatives to it. I don't know what podcast I was listening to. It was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was on Danica Patrick's podcast, and she was interviewing a woman on the effects of a cell phone to your children. And about 15 years ago, if you would have said, hey, there's this device that you're going to give your children that causes anxiety, comparison, depression, all of the shittiest things in the world, would you ever give it to your kids? And the answer, like 15, 20 years ago, would have been like, are you kidding? There's no way in hell anyone would give that to their kids. And yet here we are, where most parents, and again, I am not a parent, so I am not judging. You don't even have to come at me for that stuff. I literally have no opinion because I can't have one. I don't know what I would do if I was a parent. But most people, and I think we can all kind of agree, most children have some sort of electronic device. And even if it's not kids we're talking about, the same shit is happening with adults. And I am not immune to this. I have really good boundaries in my life. I've talked about that on my podcast before. But like at the end of the day, I'm still on my phone all the time. Most of you have probably found this podcast or listened to this podcast because you saw me somewhere on social media. You saw me speak to a group, you saw a reel of mine, you saw a video, someone shared it with you. So long and short of it is we are mostly all on social media of some kind most of the time. And it can be so negative. Like it can literally make you feel like absolute dog shit. I also think that it is a huge blessing. Now, don't get me wrong. I think a big portion of why my life is so good is because of social media, but also a lot of that negative things that come with social media I am human. I am affected by, and I'm assuming you are probably as well. And so I think this podcast today will be somewhat helpful. But what I really want to talk about is, like I said, let's just use Instagram as the example for today. You can say Facebook, TikTok, whatever you want, but like Instagram versus reality. And I have been in this kind of social media world for a really long time now. Like compared to most people, I have probably been in it quite a long time. Probably 7 years, really 6 years full time, 7, 8 years, putting out consistent content, using it in some form or fashion as a business. Compared to most people, that's quite a long time. Now, is there a shit ton of people that have been doing it way longer? Yes, but relatively long time. Let's just use it as that. I have absolutely 100% seen behind the scenes of so much when it comes to social media. There are people that you're watching today, and this isn't like calling anyone out, but I really want to highlight the point that I really want to talk about today, which is what are you really comparing yourself to? And I know that we've talked about this before, but I hope today I can kind of give a different example or a different perspective on what I'm talking about. Because I do know the ins and outs of social media. I do know a lot of these personalities that exist on social media. And I think there's sometimes, and how this whole idea of doing this podcast came together was I got kind of a shitty comment, which I've gotten before. And like, I'm not saying this affects me, but it's something that obviously, if someone was saying it, I'm assuming there's a lot of people thinking it. And it is this. Someone said to me, your life would not be like this if it weren't for your husband. And it's so interesting because then put out a post, and you can kind of go see it. I don't know how it did. I obviously don't really look at that stuff a ton, but I'm assuming it probably did quite well because there was some probably little caption or hook that I got you in with. But it was like, basically, I was saying in my post that, like, if you actually knew my life, there's no way that you would be able to say to me that my life is because of my husband. And what I mean by that is my life, if I'm being completely honest, is probably, and this is in air quotes if you're not watching it on YouTube, by the way, decided to return YouTube channel, but better than what I state online. I have a very hard time lying. I have a very hard time people who do lie. And I'm not saying that people are lying, because we do ride this line in social media. And like, I mean, my coach and I battled with this a lot. I have certain clients that I battle with this a lot. There is some times where we do have to talk about the shiny shit, because the shiny shit is what people buy. And yet, and when I first started this, my coach told me I wasn't showing half of the shiny shit that I should have been showing in order to show people what is possible. And I definitely ride the line of showing, and I don't even know what is right or wrong. If I'm being 100% honest with you, I have a very hard time only talking about the shiny shit, because I think oftentimes people are like, I want the shiny shit. I will never forget. And this client who probably listens to this podcast, a former client of mine, literally came back to me, said she wanted to work with me. And she said, I love your life because you travel a lot and you have fun. And yes, I do. But I sometimes feel like that is just such bullshit, because that is a byproduct of so much. And yet, the travel and the shiny shit and having fun is why people buy oftentimes. And it is a fine line. And if you are a person like myself that values integrity a lot and wants to never just show you one piece of the pie, I have a hard time with this. On social media, Instagram, obviously where I hang out the most, it is so disheartening sometimes where you see people showing things that are like so fucking not true. Like, I don't know if everyone knows this. I feel like I know this because I'm a part of like the industry and I know this. But like, do you realize that there is so many people nowadays? There is like websites, literally, it's, think about it as like almost like Airbnb, where you can go to rent a house to take photos, where you can rent a car to take photos, where you can rent private jets to take photos. Like, you can do all of these things to capture content to make people think that your either life or business is better than it really is. And there is so many people out there that literally give you just a fraction of A, what is real, and B, there's so many people that like don't even give you anything that's real, but is selling you things that are not even fucking theirs, or not real, or didn't come from their business, or whatever. Like, I ride the line of not showing as much because a lot of it has come from my husband's career. And I am the first fucking person to say, yes, my husband is successful. But also, like in this post that I did the other day, I was like, are you mad at me because my husband's successful and I'm still showing up and busting my ass to help people? Like, if you really knew the full fucking truth, you should be giving me props, because I actually don't fucking have to. So, am I right for showing up and working hard and doing my own thing and making my own money and helping people when I quote unquote don't have to? Or are you mad at me because my husband's successful and I have the life that I do a lot in part because of his success? It's like, no matter what, I'm fucking wrong. And I feel like that's the whole theme of today's episode, is that like, do you want an Instagram life, or do you want a real life that is awesome? Like, I've said this on this podcast before, I'm very proud of it. But like, when people meet me in real life, they're like, oh, you're the same fucking person. I'm like, yeah, duh. Like, Christina LaCure, who's coming to you on this podcast today, I really have an amazing life. Now, I have bad days. I've got, issues that aren't mine. I deal with a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but also like I really have a good life. And that's really what I want for you, because I was a person, and sometimes I feel like I need to do more episodes on how I actually was 15 years ago, where I was so depressed. I was so out of alignment. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I hated myself. I was so mean to myself. I didn't feel like I even wanted to live, to a girl today who's like, I am fucking happy whether I'm making $100,000 a year or $1,000,000 a year. I'm happy whether I have 5 clients or 35 clients. I'm happy whether I'm at home sitting at my desk like I am today, or I'm on a beach in Hawaii. Like, that to me is what I really want people to get. And sometimes I get so frustrated at this stupid industry of online. And it's not even just the coaching industry. It's just like the whole social media in general. It's like, do you want a life that looks good on social media, or do you want a life that is good? Most recently I had a client, and we're no longer working together. Our contract is up. I love and adore her. She decided not to sign on, and I totally agree. Like, she had a rough year. Like, she got a lot out of our coaching over the last year, but also too, it was a rough year for her, and she didn't hit the goals that she wanted to hit. But when we were closing, I said to her very specifically, I said, I know why you wanted to do this. I know you want to help people. I know you didn't get the results that you wanted, but damn it, you have the life offline without this business. And you should be so fucking proud of that. I said, if this never works, you still have everything that you want. And I think sometimes social media makes us feel like we're doing it wrong. It makes us feel like we're not good enough. It makes us feel like our life's not good enough, like we're not good enough. What's wrong with me? Why aren't I making the money? Why don't I have the clients? Why? But the funny thing about it was, I was like, you have such a beautiful life. You're financially fine. You have beautiful children. You have an amazing marriage. You take care of yourself. Like, that is the win. Yes, your business that you wanted to start didn't work the way that you wanted to, but your life is actually amazing. And that's really a point that I want you to hear today. Do you want the online life? Do you want the quote unquote success? Do you want the $1,000,000, the private jets, the sold out business, whatever? Or do you want a life that you actually really love? Do you want a life that's actually really good? And I'm not saying you can't have both. You 100% can have both. But I think the reason why this is just so triggering to me lately is I have seen so many people's behind the scenes, like even people that I actually really have known quite well over the years. The industry has just changed so much, and people are backpedaling. And I'm not saying that people can't change. I mean, I have the right, you have the right to change your mind tomorrow, to do something differently. But if you have noticed it and witnessed, there has been so much fucking backpedaling. There has been so much saying one thing and doing something else now. And I find that so out of integrity, because I feel like, well, it was working. When it was working, it was okay to say it. But now that it's not working, you're backpedaling and blaming other people and doing things differently. People act like they have these like amazing bougie ass lives and all of this shit. And most of it is smoke and fucking mirrors. And I'm not saying these people are bad. There's a few people that I know personally that I'm like, this is so fucked up. Like, what are we doing over here? Like, I know that this isn't real, or I know that this is like a half truth. Why are you fucking doing that? And I will always do my best to share to the maximum amount that I can share. And I'm the first person to say, like, I fucked up, or this is out of integrity, or whatever. But like, I literally try my best to put my cards on the table, because I never want someone to come to me and say like, you said this and this is true, or you said I was going to do this and like this is actually what is happening. I do not want to be that person. And I want you to understand that you have the ability to decide what you truly want. And do you want the smoke and mirrors life? And I want you to understand that it is so much smoke and mirrors. Like, so much of this shit is smoke and mirrors. Like, when you really boil it down, how to make money, how to like look a certain way, it's all been the exact same for fucking eternity. It's like, work hard, do things that people aren't willing to do, put your ass on the line, reinvest in yourself, help a person, like have a good result. Like, it's just all that shit. Having the perfect, body or whatever it is. It's like, eat relatively well, move your body, do all the things. Like, and also too, like I was listening to an unbelievable podcast and I don't know if it's come out yet, but Camille is her name. And she is the Art of the Brand podcast. And she did an unbelievable podcast. And you should if the podcast with Camille hasn't come out yet, you should 100% listen to it when it does come out. I think it may have come out before this episode. I don't know in our recording, but Camille's podcast was so good. And she has her own podcast called the Art of the Brand. And on that podcast, she did a whole series on Jennifer Lopez. And she talked about how Jennifer Lopez has really been struggling over the last few years. Her products have really been struggling. But one of the reasons why her product are struggling is because she says, like, this is what I use. This cream that I use is the way that I got like my skin and my body. And I look the way that I do at almost like, I don't know how old she is, like mid-50s. Bitch is lying. Like, there's no possible way that you look the way that she looks by using a certain cream. Now, can creams help? Is there products online? Like, I work with a lot of clients that really, really like love the products that they sell and they believe in them and all of the things, whether it be hair, face, whatever. But let's be fucking honest. We all know that in order to look like Jennifer Lopez, that does not come from fucking olive oil. Like, it just fucking doesn't. There's a lot of surgery. There's a lot of upkeep. There's a lot of shit that she does to look a certain way. And again, no shade. I'm going to be the first person to tell you when I get my fucking facelift. I'm going to document the whole damn thing. I have no qualms about that. I tell you exactly what I do in my life. I'm happy to state like what my life actually looks like, what I actually spend money on, what I actually do. But the part about it that makes people feel bad is when people are fucking straight up lying and acting like things are one way when they're not. And we as human beings, I think we have to get to the point, and I do believe that like we're getting closer, but I do believe as people who use social media, so if you have a social media account, you have to almost view social media now with a lens, in the lens of the bullshit lens. And you have to understand that like, if there is any sniff of it being not true or a fast win, like the fucking snake oil salesman, like, make $1 million, do this, hardly work hard, take this oil and look like you're 30 when you're 50. Like, we as the general public have to now literally take a step back and say, okay, if this is too good to be true, it fucking probably is. And if I don't want to feel bad about myself and I don't want to waste time, money, energy, whatever, I have to take personal responsibility and understand that, yep, I can buy all these products and I can do all these things and I can buy all these courses that tells me I can go from 0 to 1 million. But I have to take personal responsibility for my choices and understand that there's probably a 1% chance that it actually works, or a 1% chance that is the only thing that's needed. And I think if we can view social media with the lens of like not making ourselves wrong, not putting ourselves down, not thinking we're not good enough, not thinking we're not smart enough, rich enough, light enough, all of the fucking things, if we can view social media from that lens, we'll be much fucking happier. Like, even like with myself, you might think that I don't have a good life. You might think that I'm not successful. But let's just say hypothetically in this moment, you're like, she does pretty well. She looks pretty good. You have to take everything into fucking consideration. You have to understand the life that I have. You have to understand what I do on a daily basis. And if you are not willing to do those things, please, for the love of God, do not make yourself wrong and do not make yourself feel bad and do not judge yourself, because everything that I believe is when you are coming from a state of like so grateful and in such a high vibration and deciding it's your turn and taking personal responsibility for your life and loving the life that you actually have while you're on planet Earth, that is actually how you get more of what you want. And it is not from coming from lack mentality, not enough mentality, jealousy mentality, looking at social media all the time and feeling like, what is wrong with me? What am I not doing? Wasting all of your money on fucking quick fixes. You know, I recently did a discovery call with a woman who is in a really bad spot, but outside looking in, you would think that her life is fucking perfect. You would think that she's got all of her shit together. And this woman, hopefully by the time that this comes out, she decides for us to work together, because my biggest, like, I just like feel so bad about it. But my biggest like bummer is when I literally talk to another person who is not happy where they're at. And I know for a fucking fact that I can help them, because first part is every time a person signs up to work with me, I know for a fact that the minute you say yes, you're a minute closer to getting actually what you want, because you've become the person who decides they're going to do something different. You've become the person who is ready to make a change, to invest in yourself, to do something different. You have become that version of yourself. That's like already a fucking win. But the person, this woman in particular that I'm talking about, like, part of me just wants to like literally reach through the screen and hug her and say, do you want a life that looks good on social media, or do you want a life that is good, whether it's on social media or off social media? To me, who gives a fuck what the internet thinks if you are literally miserable? If you literally don't feel like enough, if you're always constantly stressed out, overwhelmed, anxiety, thinking that there's the next, and then I'll be happy. It does not fucking work like that. I promise you. Please take it from a woman who 15 years ago, God, it's been longer than that now, but whatever, close to 15 years ago, literally did not want to live some days, felt like complete dog shit, didn't feel like she had a purpose, was so out of alignment. I had money, I had looks, I had a career, and yet I was not happy. I didn't take personal responsibility for my life. I didn't decide it was my turn. I didn't work on myself. And for the last 15 years, still to this fucking day, just this week, I was in a therapy session because I was like, dear God, I've got to do something different. Dear God, this has got to change. And I know that I'm the only person who can fix this one thing. This has been a really rough week for me behind the scenes, not in Christina's life and just other aspects of my life, things that I have to deal with. But I took personal responsibility for my life. I actually don't give a fuck what it looks like on the internet. I care about what it's like in real life. When I put my head on the pillow at night, when I'm around the people that I care about, that is what I want for you. And I do not want so many people thinking they're not enough, they're not good enough, buying the quick fixes, thinking that when the quick fixes don't work, there's something wrong with them. No, there's nothing wrong with you. But you have the power to make a change. You have the power to decide it's your turn. You have the power to do something different. Every single solitary one of us were put on this planet for a purpose and a reason. And it's our job to live that fully, our job to make that happen. Is it easy? No, but is it worth it? Fuck yes. And that's what I want for you. So if you are the person who is looking at social media and feels like dog shit, please, for the love of God, turn it off. Do not fucking look at that shit. Figure out how to actually take personal responsibility for your life. Figure out how to get in a good vibration. Because when you're in that good vibration and you're helping others and you're helping yourself and you're just so grateful for what is, that is where everything else comes from. And I know that sounds so fucking woo-woo, but if you're at a point in your life where you're like, this is no longer working and I've got to do something different, please reach out. I promise you it can be different, but you have to decide it's your turn. You have to take personal responsibility for your life. And please, for the love of God, know half the shit, probably more, that you see on the internet is not the full picture. Even if it's 1% of the picture, it's not the full picture. And if you feel bad, please get off of it. Please, please, please get off and get into alignment. Get into something that makes you feel good. Get outside, like literally ground yourself, meditate, be around good people, find good people. It is ways to do it. I've talked about it on this podcast before. If you have to pay to get in the right circle, do it. If you have to have someone supporting you, do it. Do whatever you need to do to get in a better vibration and get off fucking social media. And please look at social media from this point on, just knowing that like half the shit you see is not real. More than half the shit you see is not real, or it's not the full picture. Please just understand and know that, and don't make yourself feel bad or wrong. You guys, I know this was a quick solo episode, but it was just on my heart to share. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Also, too, if there's anything I can ever talk about on this podcast, especially on these solos, please let me know, because sometimes I get blocked on what it is that you want to hear. And if you have any suggestions, all you have to do is send me a text, 501-222-3362. You can send me a DM on social media. You guys, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for sharing this podcast. It means the world to me. If you've never subscribed to our podcast, that's how we get more listeners and get this podcast out to other people. And if you want to give us a 5-star review, I'd be unbelievably grateful. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.